workplace trends are not going to revert to back how it was when we were coming up in the working world. And the more that we embrace that sentiment and the more that we recognize that the way that things once were are not the way that they are or ever will be again, then I think the easier it will be for employers to understand employee expectations.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Navigate's People First podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Please continue to subscribe and like our podcast. If we're bringing you joy and value to your day, please continue to do that. Jay and I are excited to start today and diving into a favorite topic of ours, which is workplace culture. We're so happy to have Julie Develin, Senior Partner, HCM Advisory at UKG, joining us. Julie, welcome to the show. Thanks for wearing your Phillies shirt during our podcast with a bunch of Cubs here today.
Listen, I love the Phillies, and you'll hear me say that a few times. I live and die with the Phillies. These days, mostly die until they get back on track. So we'll see.
I think you'll be just fine. Well, hey, this is one of my favorite episodes I've been looking forward to. We met Julie at a conference actually here in Iowa. And our wonderful leader, Chrissy Smith of People and Culture here at Navigate, said, Troy, you've got to meet Julie. You guys are going to hit it off. It's going to be amazing. And I'm like, okay, when Chrissy talks, I listen. And we had Julie speak at our national conference in San Antonio, which was wonderful. And probably my favorite moment with Julie was about 20 minutes before she went on. And of course, we were running a little late. And as all things do at summits, right? And Julie's sitting there with her suitcase, and I just plopped down beside her outside in the hallway. And within about 20 minutes conversation, Julie and I became pretty good friends because we compared number of flights so far this year, which she whooped me on that. Where are you at right now on your connections?
Over 90.
Yeah, she's in the 90s. And I was like, okay, that was a beat down. And then we compared suitcases because her suitcase, had some bumps and bruises on it. Is that thing still in order, or have you gotten a new one yet?
It is. And it's one of the, I don't know if I should say the brand, but it's one of those really nice brands. And I saved the $50 and I got the white color, and that was a mistake because it looks pretty cool because I have stickers all over it. So, but it's beaten up. It's pretty beaten up.
You won on that one too. And then we did a comparison of shoes, and we found out we're both shoe heads and card heads, which is kind of fun. And we were comparing some Caitlin Clarks and things like that. And so like we'd already won. I'd already won before, Julie got on stage, but it was awesome to just talk with you about your life and how, we both believe that people really drive business success. And that's where, we really aligned, and it was just wonderful kind of to connect the dots. And then, we knocked it out of the park at our summit. People were just like, all right, collaborative environments, passionate about people. Yes, she's a trendsetter when it comes to HR, but I think one of the things I enjoyed the most about you was just you're passionate about people and you're passionate about HR and how we can use business for good to really help people in their pursuit of their purpose and their passion through work. And we're just excited to have you here today, and I'm anxious to dig in. So, what I'm going to ask you first. Well, you know what? First off, just give a little bit of background. Folks might not necessarily know you, but just maybe your role at UKG and what you're doing and why you're on the road so much. Maybe give that.
Yeah, UKG. I've been at UKG 5 years. And prior to UKG, I was an HR VP for 17 years. Also an HR professor. I've been teaching for a very long time. But so after I got out of the practitioner role, HR practitioner role, I went to work for what was then Kronos. And they were building an HCM, human capital management, sort of evangelism firm, if you will, within the organization. Kronos, known for the workforce management, but really was going to be shifting into the HR piece as well. And long story longer, right? We merged with Ultimate Software, and that need wasn't really there anymore because Ultimate Software was known as the HCM company. So now you have best in class workforce management, best in class HR, and then we continue my team. We continue to evangelize UKG and HR, and I travel a lot because I get to consult and I get to speak, just like at your conference, on stages all over the country and internationally here and there. So I speak to HR audiences, payroll audiences, business audiences, all sorts of audiences. And I speak about the world of work, and I try to take a little bit of a different spin on things, which I'm sure we can get into later. But that's what I do, and absolutely love what I do. I'm in front of HR and payroll and leaders every single week of all industries, all different sizes, all over the country and beyond. And I just learned so much from meeting folks, and I love it.
I love it. We talk about the summit. That's our way to facilitate, deeper, more meaningful connections with our clients and our broker partners and our staff as well. And when you came in there, you talked about, reaffirming the commitment for employers to really serve their people, but also serve the communities they serve as well, the communities that they're in, which I thought was wonderful. What are you thinking about today? Because, when I listen to your podcast, which is called the People Purpose Podcast, one of the questions you always talk about is like, what are you thinking about today? So tell me what you're thinking about today, and I'm anxious to hear.
It's interesting what I'm thinking about today. I think you'll love this because, you and I have obviously hit it off on the sports theme. And I think about sports a lot, shocker. And what I'm thinking about is yesterday, I don't know when this is going to drop, but the Olympics, right? And the women's team and how they lost by 1 point, and just how much of a heart attack that almost gave me. However, I'm also thinking about LA 28. And I was reading an article today on LinkedIn about just how much money that is going to bring in from a business perspective to LA and really to the US in general. Because it's not just LA. Softball, for example, is going to be in Oklahoma City. So I look at it from a couple of different angles, and I think about the Olympics a lot because UKG, we have a research arm called the Workforce Institute, and we did a study on the Olympics. And we released this study prior to the Olympics starting. And the study was regarding how many people were going to miss work because of the Olympics. And it was 27 million people said they were going to miss work. And then there were even more data points regarding how many people were going to be less productive because they're going to be able to watch it on their phone at work. And yeah, that's pretty much how it was.
I didn't think of it as like lost production. I looked at it as an opportunity to bring the team together and have the Olympics streaming in the office or, in the background the whole time, because I mean, there's purpose, there's passion, there's teamwork. There's so many amazing stories that are within the Olympics that, to me, I use it as an X factor to kind of reflect on of why we should be watching the Olympics during this time. Jay, what do you think about the Olympics and the streaming that we had in the office on the whole time?
I think we're lucky that we get to see that as an opportunity to bond, an opportunity to enjoy, and just to have a good time. And it's refreshing that we're taking breaks to watch our favorite sports. And I'm a junkie for the Olympics myself. I both summer and winter. I'm a huge fan. Can't wait for LA games and can't wait for the next Winter Olympics too.
I thought the Chili Peppers played it off pretty good. That was nice. Them on the beach there at the end.
I thought it was cool. I thought it was really cool. I thought they did a good job. I also agree. I actually wrote a LinkedIn post regarding that, regarding how the Olympics can bring us together. Yes, our study was regarding the lack of productivity. And actually it was picked up by a journalist who did some math And he determined that the dollar figure in lost productivity was almost $3 billion. And that's a low number. Because it's impossible to track exactly how much, but, there is a take on the negative side of it, but I too agree that if we're looking at opportunities in a world where we are so connected yet so disconnected, to actually bring people together under a common purpose, to learn about other cultures, to learn about different sports. I mean, some of these sports are just amazing. And you think about doing things, you mentioned earlier that my passion for HR, right? I do have a passion for HR. It came about organically, but if you think about sports like handball or water polo, you heard what happened with water polo, right? About how Flavor Flav had to subsidize the team.
Right.
I mean, did I just say that sentence right? Flavor Flav had to subsidize the women's water polo team for the for the Olympic. What? I mean, these folks don't make money doing this, and many of them have full-time jobs and careers and lives outside of training to be world-class athletes, and that's passion. So. But they do it because they love it and it fills their cup in some way, which I relate to because what I do also fills my cup.
If I could show, which we will, show everybody after Steven Nedorozic, I think I'm saying that right, the American pommel horse specialist, the celebrate, like the pre and the post after that. He sat there, 5 rotations waiting for his turn to contribute to the team as a specialist in the pommel horse, and cheered on everybody, was yelling for everybody. They were, showing him go around everywhere. And then he got in his zone and it was his time to perform, and he did his job and he went out there and crushed it. And when he came off the mat, watching the entire United States team go absolutely crazy for him, and the hugs and the jumping up and down, and that's stuff that you as a leader, you want people to see. You want them to see where he waited his turn, he contributed outside his turn, he was a member of the team that specialized, and he went in there and did his job, and everybody celebrated. And then the men's team got a medal for the first time in a long time. That to me is like the meaningful connection that you can show in a business where sports relates. I mean, I loved it. It was just great. I watched it like 3 times. Him putting his glasses back on were just fantastic.
He's one of those great stories, and you're absolutely right. There are so many lessons to be learned from a business perspective from sports, right? I truly believe that my upbringing in playing sports my entire life, even up till today, made me take the losses better, made me a better team player. One of the things I think about when you talk about that is you look at the men's team and the amount of superstars that are on that team. Those gentlemen on that team generally have never not been the best player in the gym. Yet many of them sat on the bench and just were role players, and they accepted that role. Tyrese Halliburton, who played very, very limited minutes. I don't know if you guys saw, but he posted something with his gold medal, and he said, when you don't contribute to the group project, but you still get an A, right? That was brilliant. That was brilliant. And basically like poking fun at it. But just they're all a team, and the same way with the women. I mean, Diana Taurasi didn't play in the gold medal game. Yet she was probably one of the most important pieces of the puzzle to them winning that game. There's so many things that are behind the scenes, and we can make the parallels all day long between that and other things too when it comes to business. I look at I've been studying and I'm going to be talking more about the intersection of pop culture and work, and how we can make that, how we can find opportunity in those moments that can bring us together, because I think it's there.
Tyrese went to a great school, got educated really well at up in Ames, Iowa, at Iowa State. Pretty good guy. And I love watching Diana coach from the sideline. she reminded me of like, every one of these sports is a grind. It's kind of like people today. People are grinding in the workforce. They're grinding. They're feeling the pressures. They're feeling the stress. And I think about like a Diana Taurasi, sitting on the sidelines, coaching from the sidelines. She was just that great manager that was like out there making sure that, folks were coming up on, timeouts coming, get up to the corner, trap them, don't foul here. And she's coaching from the left and other coaches coaching from the right. But when you're seeing the trends that are out there right now, you're seeing people grind too. What are you seeing employers trying to understand, where employees are and seeing how they can, helping them succeed? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, what I'm seeing a lot of is employers recognizing that workplace trends are not going to revert to back how it was when we were coming up in the working world. And the more that we embrace that sentiment and the more that we recognize that the way that things once were are not the way that they are or ever will be again, then I think the easier it will be for employers to understand employee expectations. What I see a lot of is a lot of employers doing things the same way because that's the way it's always been done. And in my purview of talking to HR and payroll folks and leaders, managers, they want to change. They want to change, yet they come across these barriers to progress of, okay, well, we have everything, we have a plan in place. And then they're told, well, no, actually, we don't have the budget for that, or no, we can't do that. I think that it's important that businesses recognize, and I think they are recognizing more and more, the importance of people as a cultural driver, of course, but also to success, and not just people, but the right people. So hiring for cultural fit, I think has become more important as well. It's difficult to do because you get discriminatory issues there. However, making sure that we're hiring people at our organization that are going to understand their purpose towards the overall mission. I think that organizations are also realizing and doing a better job of explaining to employees just why they matter. So, it's again, we go back to that purpose, right? That purpose piece. What is your purpose? My purpose, I know my purpose. My purpose is that I want to leave HR and the surrounding professions better than when I found them. That's my purpose. That's what I want to do. However, I can contribute to that, whether it's consulting, whether it's speaking, whether it's doing podcasts like this, whether it's my own podcast, whatever. I feel like if I take a step forward towards that, weekly, monthly, whatever, then I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like I have a purpose. I think that employers need to recognize more that people often won't just find that purpose. They need to be told, here's how you are affecting the mission of the company. This is how your position affects the overall bottom line, right? And it's not just telling them once, it's that reiteration. The communication piece in this day and age, employers are finding is more important than ever before. And it's not just communicating itself, it's how we communicate. It's meeting people where they are in terms of how they want to be communicated with. So yeah, I mean, I know I just said a lot there, but that's what I'm seeing. I'm just seeing these themes of needing to connect more, purpose wise and transparency wise on both sides, employers and employees.
We've added significant employees that navigate number of employees over the past, 6 months. Jay, you've wonderful leader in technology. Where are you seeing where that cultural fit, that retention, performance? You've had a significant number of folks to your team. Where are you playing in that field, and how you dreaming that to move forward?
Well, I think Julie hit the nail on the head first time, and it's about finding cultural fits, and cultural fits around Navigator people that are experts in their field, that know their stuff inside and out, and can be relied on to do that job, do it well, do it with guidance, but without interference and oversight, right? And so when we're looking for people, we're looking for people that know their stuff and can operate autonomously and independently and help us build to the organization that we envision 3 to 5 years down the road and even further. So building the culture is really, at least for Navigate, is about being good at your job, being a good person, being a high character person. But high character people tend to be pretty good at their jobs, and just kind of goes along with the territory. So more than skill set, more than background, we look for someone who is character and quality and skill set, but is going to get along with the team really well. And if they have those those characteristics, then in all likelihood, they're going to get along with the team and the rest of the organization just fine.
And managers play such a huge role in, I think, well-being. When you think about, again, people drive good businesses, and so managers drive good people. Julie, when you think about some actionable steps that businesses are doing to help managers, where are you at with that? Maybe give us some insight on that.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I don't see them doing enough. But I do have some recommendations. However, what I find is that oftentimes businesses, especially smaller businesses, they promote people because they're good at their job, assuming that they're going to be good at leading people. And that is the farthest thing from the truth. And I'm sure you guys in your careers have seen some of that as well. It's pretty common, but what I'm seeing more and more is that human resources departments are truly becoming internal consultants for managers. And HR has always played that internal consultant role, but now they're playing in some organizations more of an educator role, be it monthly series for managers to hone their skills, or one-on-one meetings with managers to hone their skills. Also recognizing, and this is important, that not everybody learns the same way. And our perception is our reality. So all of us have preconceived notions of what work should be based on our experiences and how we've grown up, if you will. I know for me, I take a lot of what I think work should be and how I should be at work from my dad, and how I saw my dad work, and I still see my dad work at 76. Right. And that sort of shaped my purview. Right. But not everybody has had that. Not everybody's had that. So, what one manager expects may not be what another manager expects. And you could have team members under different managers who have different expectations. And then you have this perception of unfairness because, oh, so-and-so doesn't have to do this. Why do I have to do this? So I think it's important, what organizations need to do is get out of the silos and bring managers together under common sort of standard operating procedures, right? Making sure that you don't have people going rogue, if you will. I think the more streamlined that organizations can make their management practices, the better off it'll be. But again, that requires a lot of communication, and it requires leadership that understands the why, right? You have to understand the why behind it.
And it takes some listening too, right?
Yeah.
Jay, when we think about things that Navigate, one of the things that we do is we have people look at themselves first, and we have them look at their personality through Navigate You and see how they come, as they come to communicate, how they're bringing themselves forward. When you think about how you're connecting the dots around your business unit to other business units, how are you looking at being purposeful in that action?
To me, it's all about communication. It's really, really challenging to make all of this happen without being able to understand where the other person's coming from. So any kind of tools, any kind of training, any kind of education we can get that helps people understand each other and have authentic communications, whether that be online, whether that be in face-to-face or in person. I think that's less significant than being authentic and true to yourself and true to what you're trying to achieve, what the organization is trying to achieve, and trying to meet someone in the middle, knowing that they're coming at the problem from a different way, but from the same place. Authentic communication. And that's something that HR can be the sort of guidepost for all the rest of us. It's understanding being open, being willing to meet someone halfway.
I find so many organizations are only using email as a means of communication, and it just can't be that way anymore. It just can't be that way. Especially, I had a conversation a few weeks ago with an organization who told me that, yeah, they communicate with their employees via email, but not every employee has a company email address. I'm like, well, so then you're not, the biggest misconception about communication is that it's actually happened. Just because we send something out and put some kind of, information into the ether, into the void, that's where it's going. Right. I think the real test of whether or not communication is working is, are you getting the intended outcome? When I was in HR, I used to use email as my primary form of communication. And every year around open enrollment time, I would send an email to all employees asking them to register for open enrollment. And then lo and behold, at the 23rd hour, right, when open enrollment closed, I would still have to be tracking people down because people generally don't read their email.
Culture and communication have, that the X factor when it comes to just making sure that we have high level performance, and you're seeing where folks are doubling down on culture, where that pendulum is shifting toward more of an employer market, the macro economy that's going on right now. And as you reflect on, maybe where that's going, Julie, you know, continually bringing high value, continually, a greater focus on employee satisfaction and retention when it comes to saving dollars and being productive. When that pendulum's starting to shift toward that employer market, where are you seeing that, or what's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, that pendulum shift is always a thing with work, and it's really palpable. I know, prior to say around March 13th, 2020, it was very much an employer's pendulum, like that shift. Like the employers seemed to have most of the quote unquote power. But then, almost overnight, that power shifted back to the employee because employers needed employees to work differently in order to keep the organizations running. And now what you're seeing as the economy fluctuates, as the economy shifts, as the new political cycles come into play, all of these things have a meaning when it comes to this pendulum. That power, if you will, is shifting more back to the employer. And I think employees feel that. Now, what that does is it does not do anything to provide psychological safety for employees. And psychological safety is one of the most important pillars of the employee experience. If you don't have trust, and trust comes through transparency and good communication, among other things. But if you don't have that as a foundation, everything else is sort of going to crumble down. So what you have, since you have this pendulum that has shifted back to the employer, employees are scared, they're not sure what the future holds, et cetera. Now, employers feel the same exact way, right? But now they recognize that employees, in not so many words, need them because the job market's so difficult. All of that, it is a game, right? I mean, you hate to call it that, but it feels that way at times.
We spent a disproportionate amount of time at our summit this year talking about trust and the strategies around trust in the workplace and the culture and transparency. Unleashing transparency, if you're not already, is an X factor when it comes to just improving retention, engagement, letting people know that, we understand that you're in the grind. We understand that the pendulum is shifting a little bit, but still we have to think about people's overall well-being when it comes to, the value that their job brings, helping them be a high level performance individual, looking at a higher level of employee satisfaction, because we need to keep our best and our brightest. We need to engage those. And I also think too that there's some folks that might be even hidden that we can say, hey, there's great opportunities for learning and development that maybe that you haven't seen or we haven't been able to provide you. And so I love being able to find that individual that's out there saying, hey, I want to step up. I want to do certain things, and here's some learning and development to have to you. We were at SHRM conference and we talked about the number one thing on the SHRM list was, learning and development. And it was civility. So it was learning and development and civility, those top two items. Jay, when you think about learning and development and, engaging that within the culture and well-being, where do you go when listening to employees and helping them understand their options in learning and development to help build the culture?
I think I go to survey tools. I go to communication from managers to their people. I think I go to HR putting that education and training on managers how to listen into place, and then I go finding tools, resources, and education. And it's like I'm going all over the place a little bit here because it's managers' responsibility, it's business as a culture responsibility, it's individual employee that all have different things that they want to focus on. Frankly, it's a huge challenge that the only way to tackle it is for everybody to be pulling in the same direction. And that means resources from the top, commitment to training, education, development of people, and the time it takes to do that, right? Every minute you're doing that, you're not doing the other 8 things that you're paid to do. And you've got to, starting from the top down, say that this is important to us and that we're going to spend the time here because the easiest way for our organization to advance is that each and everybody at our organization is living up to what they can achieve and what they want to achieve for the organization.
It's that collaborative environment. I mean, I look at the medal standings every morning. That was my thing. I was looking at the medal standings. Where are we at in the United States? That collaborative environment of what we're providing to folks. And Julie, you talk about collaborative environments a lot. When you think about, the key characteristics of defining like a great place to work, where do you see that in today's environment?
Yeah, I think a great place to work, well, it means many different things, but a culture of accountability is one. And that's not something that I think a lot of people would go to first. But when you think about a culture of accountability and people taking responsibility if something goes wrong and feeling okay about doing that, feeling okay about admitting their mistakes and like they're not going to lose their job if they did something wrong, as long as they're doing things within the best interest, of course. I think that's one thing. I think another thing is managers and employers who recognize the importance of individuality with employees and how the employee experience is not one size fits all, and it can't be one size fits all. And I think it would be naive for us to think that everybody has the same employee experience, or we can provide the same exact employee experience for everyone, because there are so many different nuances that go into what makes it. Manager, your role, your salary, a million different things, your location, whether or not, over the pandemic and even today, we see a lot of people who never could leave an office or never could leave the shop floor versus the people who are able to work remotely. I had that conversation last week at a conference where I was, and they're like, we don't know what to do. There's jealousy there, all of that. So recognizing that everybody is sort of going through something in their life that we know nothing about outside of work, and that we do bring more of our authentic selves to work than ever before. That recognition makes a great place to work. Trust, of course, transparency, of course, good communication, all of those staple items. But I also think it's important for organizations, Jay, you mentioned surveys. We can survey until we're blue in the face, but it's what we do with those results that make the biggest impact. Because if we do nothing with those results, then employees aren't going to be willing to provide the feedback the next time we ask. So taking that survey feedback and actually showing the actionable items that the organization put into place based on what that feedback was is super impactful, and I think really does a lot in making a great place to work.
Jay, we were at one of our favorite clients, and it's a significant hospital system out east, and hearing them talk about how they're using data for good and how they're looking at collecting that feedback, analyzing that data, looking at how they can help shape behaviors moving forward. in their communication, in their incentive design, in how they're connecting people to community and their culture. It's one of my favorite meetings that we had. And they're just so positive and they want to do more. They want to do more. And I think about HR team of 4 people for 29,000 employees. And I'm thinking to myself, the X factor that you are to the positive profitability, the positive impact, the positive production of all the people that you touch by the action that you do, HR has to be the grittiest group of people on the planet.
Well, thank you for saying that. That's not generally the sentiment of employees as a whole. I can go there if you want me to.
I want you to go there. Absolutely. I want you to go there.
A lot of what I do when I speak to HR specific audiences is I talk about the importance of employee experience, that HR is also an employee and that their experience matters too. And that's not something that we in HR think about because we're thinking about everyone else. So for example, if HR needs something, a tool, software, whatever, right? And they go and ask for it, they're told, no, it's not in the budget. Well, let finance go and ask that same question and see what the answer is, right? So if we're going to say that people are most important, the most important thing when it comes to profits, or among the most important thing, right? We have to make sure that we're providing HR the tools that they need to get their job done. Now, we also have to make sure our people have the tools they need. But what employers tend to do is they tend to think of HR in many realms as a cost center. The other thing that, and not a strategic partner, and that's still a thing to this day. It has absolutely gotten better, but it's very much circumstantial. And it's very much based upon the progressiveness or not of the C-suite of the organization. I think that HR also is fighting a lot of different battles that those not in HR don't generally think about. The one thing that I was reading, and this is so true, we don't have a name, right? Oh, you're going to HR, not Julie. You're going to HR. You're going to HR, right?
It's like the principals. You're going to the principal's office.
Yes, no, but that's exactly how it is. We also don't get a great rap in the media. We're stereotyped big time. So we're fighting against all of these things. And we're also fighting against the misconception in some circumstances that we are only there for the employer. Listen, we have jobs to do and we have to protect the employer. That is part of our job. But whenever we can, we also want to make sure that, we're protecting the employee. At least that's been my experience. And I find most HR people are in that realm. So we're sort of like Switzerland, where we have to sit in the middle and balance things out. And very rarely is that balance equal in terms of who something benefits. So all of this, okay, so over the years, all of this has played into this, what I think is a crisis of mental health for HR practitioners. So I've done some independent research on this and asking HR practitioners, what is something we don't talk about enough in HR? I've gotten open-ended answers of over 500 responses in all over the country into Canada to that question. And overwhelmingly, over 40% of the answers to an open-ended question is we don't talk enough about HR mental health and who's HR for HR.
Julia, I think you hit it. And one of the things that we've been talking about at Navigate for a few years, and we're amplifying this, is women's health. If you think about the number of women that are in HR and the overall health of women is something that we have been purposeful about evaluating and looking at what are the forces that we can help shape organizations and thinking about women's health. It isn't always just a tool, but it might be some policies that we have. And we've gotten great feedback at Navigate from our leaders when it comes to women's health and what we are offering for particular services. And, we're having a lot of kids at Navigate, and, our maternity benefits, we listen, we learn, we analyze the data. And by just providing, a shortened work day when folks are just coming back, and there's, progressing that up over a 4-week period, has helped moms, adjust to that change. And That wasn't a tool. That was just a listening exercise. That was just a benefits change. And we just did it because it was the right thing to do. So when you think about those meaningful changes that we can do when it comes to women's health, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to helping our HR folks, that to me is like a listening exercise that needs to be progressed.
Yeah, and these days, don't stop at the folks just having babies. Go to the women going through menopause as well. That's something that's been a huge push over the past several years. And as it's gotten less taboo to discuss mental health and these kind of things in society, it's gotten even more or less taboo for organizations to provide benefits for these people.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge fan of younger generations sort of kicking down those stereotypes and breaking taboos, especially in the workplace, about conversations about mental health, about conversations about what they need and what they want out of their workplace, out of their managers, out of what they expect from compensation and benefits. I think a lot of us that are a little older, it was a world where you didn't talk about that kind of stuff. And now some of those things are being broken down. And I think for the benefit. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even salary, but that's been legislated, right? Because I don't know that salary ever would have not been taboo. Although in many parts of the world, it's not taboo. I know that in the US, it's always been there, but there's been so many states now that have mandated the salary ranges that it really can't be anymore. So listen, people are I mentioned earlier, bringing more of their authentic selves to work than ever before, and the importance of transparency that works on both ends.
So Julie, you work with over 80,000 customers across all sizes, industries, geographies at UKG. What factors are you thinking about for 2025 and trends when it comes to what we should be preparing for, health and well-being, learning and development? What are the trends you're thinking about for 2025?
I love this question, and I have to be completely transparent with you all. This is something that I have been thinking about and I've been racking my brain over for the past several months. Because once we hit like beginning of summer-ish, I start thinking about, okay, well, these trends, all right, they're out the door. We got to think about next year. And I'm struggling because I believe that some of the trends that we see this year, or we've seen this year, or we've identified, are still going to be a thing moving into 2025. Now, AI is absolutely a trend, if you will, but it's not just AI for the sake of AI. It's what can I physically do with AI to make my life easier? That's one thing. The second thing is education surrounding AI from an ethical standpoint, from a what is it standpoint. People are afraid of what they don't know. A lot of people don't know that they've been utilizing AI every single day that they've had a smartphone, right? So when we break down those barriers of fear and what's called AI anxiety for employees, because employees see that AI is quote unquote taking over some jobs, right? But is it really taking over the jobs, or is it creating new jobs and also removing some barriers to entry into the workforce for folks? I think, employers need to be really, really transparent with how they're utilizing AI. We did another study at UKG about how many employers are utilizing AI to make decisions at work versus how many employees know that they're utilizing AI to make decisions. And there's a disconnect there for sure. So AI is not going away. It's still going to be a thing. I think that there are some organizations that went a little too fast with it. And you're seeing some of the metas of the world backing off
Kind
a
of
little
pulling
bit.
back a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit because of the pace of change. The pace of change has never been this fast. It's never going to be this slow again. That's what Justin Trudeau said like years ago, right? And I think that that's more apropos today than ever before. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I read something today about colleges and universities and how many of them are having to remove programs just to survive. The fact of the matter is, not as many people are going to college anymore, and that's okay. So when we as employers are putting out job requisitions, are we are we mandating a degree just for the sake of it? Like, why would someone need a degree for your position? So I would highly recommend employers take a look at what they're advertising for job wise and see what the skills and requirements truly are. That's the other thing. You mentioned learning and development earlier too. Employees today and moving into 2025 are going to be increasingly expecting employers to invest in them, to invest in their careers, to give them a path to growth. There's a lot of companies that have great people that are stuck. And sometimes we keep people where they are because we don't know how we're going to fill their job. But that doesn't help them and it doesn't help the organization. So trends, yes, you're going to see all of this plus a lot more. The evolution of wellness at work, and you guys know this better than anyone, right?
And your career is very important to the whole person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, I trends. I'd love to know what you guys think. What do you see trends? I'm going to turn it on you. Let me interview you.
I love it. We're always looking at the trends. I mean, obviously the UKGs, our broker partners, we're looking at what they predicted in 2023, what's going to happen in 2024. So we evaluate those and take a look at, okay, did those trends really happen? Did they really connect? And so always looking at that. And so I've spent my July kind of going through those. And so then I started to look at 2025. I think the macro environment is something that we really need to pay attention to. Like you said, there's the election that's coming up. If you look at history and when elections happen, you're going to start to see some trends that are patterns when an election happens. And so you think about the macro environment. I can name 14 large brands right now that have dropped 10% of their workforce in the last 6 months. We need to understand that. I think another thing we need to understand too is those larger companies are dropping jobs in smaller communities where 500 jobs in a community that's 10,000, 10,000, lives there, 500 jobs, that's almost a community killer. It's something that we need to connect with, understand that communities are suffering with those job losses as well. And so that macro environment that goes down to the micro environment of the communities, we need to take heed on, but then also understand that those are affecting the people that are going to stay at work too. So that culture of the folks that don't lose their job, understanding like, hey, yes, you didn't lose your job, and we need to make sure that they're taken care of too, and that their mindset, their productivity, their development is still top of mind, a priority, their overall well-being. So their psychological safety around that. So continuing those meaningful connections to when there are job losses, or maybe, we might see that trend, continuing over the next, 6 months, that we understand that we still need to pay attention to our culture, retention, performance, and invest in people, and those folks that are with us. So that would be one of my trends for 2025. Jay, what are you thinking?
I think you're right. I think the macro environment, specifically the political environment, is going to have a giant impact on 2025. And I think it's going to be really challenging to pin down trends because there's largely two directions you could go, right? And so I think it'll be tough to figure out what that looks like if we've been teetering around using the R word for the past 18 months. I won't drop that around. Recession.
Don't even whisper it.
Yeah, I know. Don't whisper it. And I think that's what we have to be on the lookout for. And if something like that continues to come into presence or to recede into the background, I think that will be the trigger of what the trends will be in 2025. And if we start seeing more of that, then we're going to be talking about taking care of people as much as we can. And if not, then I think we'll be looking more at things like AI. I think we'll be looking more at tools and functionality and less about people as people look to tighten their belts a little bit.
I want to paint a picture where we can have actionable steps to meet people where they are and get prepared if this happens as a trend in 2025, which, you're looking at the opportunity that's probably, it gives it a 50-50 shot. So we'll prepare for the worst, right? And so making sure that we're thinking about making those meaningful connections, making sure that we're putting dollars into career development, we're looking at our benefit and our plan designs, making sure that we're doing the right things there. We're looking at looking at where our costs are coming from and focusing on those areas when it comes to how we can help people and still recruit and still make sure that people understand that the whole person comes to work, and how do we continue to evaluate the forces that shape how our organization is going to grow and how we're going to be reflected in the marketplace. Because when it's tough times like this is where, the shoes hit the pavement, right? That's where it's like, are you really a good company? Do you really have a great culture? Are you really doing all the right things? Or are you just talking about it? And that's where I think what we do within well-being and culture, we can really help people show what they're doing and continue to do that, and meet people where they are.
Yeah, the importance of data also is going to be continuously important, but not just any kind of data, the right data that can be trusted. And that you can actually have actionable decisions based upon that data. So yeah, all important. Absolutely.
Completely agree. The data we received from our Great Place to Work survey was invaluable. And we spent hours picking it apart and putting it back together in different ways and trying to gain the insights that we need. And, after a while, you got to a point where you're like, oh, I can actually see a couple of very clear action items that are coming out of a couple of pieces of data in a weird slice that, once we really dove in there, we said, okay, this is something we think long term can make a difference. But it takes you get out of it what you put into it, right? Like you said, it's got to be good data, and there's good data there, but you've got to put the effort into do the work.
And that helped us make better, confident business decisions when it comes to the data that we were pulling from the Great Places to Work survey and other surveys that we have. And I think, to me, that was an inflection point for me, being able to say, here are opportunities for us to prioritize and really make decisions that we're confident about based on listening to our people moving forward. And we continue to do that today. And we announce our findings from our Great Place to Work survey coming up here. And I think that's important, especially as in the mode that we're in right now. We've acquired a business. We're bringing their culture into our culture. We're connecting those dots, and just, making sure everybody knows that, your work is worth it. And we're creating this collaborative environment. We're listening, and we're going to continue to serve that way and keep people first. So we'll just keep doing that. Hey, Julie, what's one thing that we need to be talking about in HR that we're not talking about in HR right now?
Confidence, and how HR folks have been told no so many times in their careers that sometimes they've stopped asking. So oftentimes they will just keep going on the way that things have always been, because again, that's the way they've always been. And it's less stressful for someone who's already stressed out mentally, physically, emotionally, all of those different ways. Less stressful to just not ask and have to suffer the rejection than to ask for what you need. So I think that's something that we need to be talking about more. And the importance of networking in HR too, making sure that folks are attending conferences whenever they can, be it virtual or in person. I think that those experiences and recognizing that you're not alone and that nobody in HR has it all figured out is really, really important. Our job is never done.
Hey, so let's go there. You've got a conference coming up here in November. Tell us about that a little bit.
Oh, Aspire, UKG's Aspire conference. Yeah, it's our customer conference in Las Vegas. It's going to be a good time.
What are you speaking about? You're probably on 3 different stages.
I'm speaking with 2 of our customers actually, and understanding their stories. I don't think I'm going to do any thought leadership at this conference, which is okay. I do so much of the thought leadership stuff. Going to be talking more about the experiences of our customers, and then we also have another sort of conference on the side of the conference called the UKG Experience, which is for future customers, and I'm going to be emceeing that and working on panels, and it basically just going to be in Vegas going Mach 100 as you do in Vegas. So looking forward to it.
Right on the heels of a Phillies World Series, so you'll probably have some nice energy there. But
from your mouth to,
well, hey, thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise. We talk about thought leadership, we talk about passionate people around HR, and you're definitely those two, and we're grateful. To all of our listeners out there, I hope this episode, enriched your understanding of culture and the transformative element that culture can bring to the positiveness of a business and to the bottom line. We're not just creating healthier employees. We're trying to build vibrant companies that contribute to the communities that they serve, and using well-being as a variable in that equation. So, our closing segment every time is best day ever. We talk about this. So, it's about, something that's going good, something that is positive, a recent experience. So Jay, kick us off. What's your best day ever?
For me, it's the Olympics. That's many days, but I absolutely adore the Olympics, especially the Summer Games. Every day of it is something interesting and passionate. And I, like Julia, I love the smaller niche sports. I love me some handball. I watched a surprising amount of water polo, equestrian events. Who would have thought I enjoyed that? I learned about the modern pentathlon, which, if you have a chance, look that up. It's the strangest thing ever. But I love it. I love it all. I love the Olympics. To me, days and days of the best day ever for a lot of people.
I love it. And I love this, our suggestion box this year. I mean, just this morning that I got a note in there saying that for our annual meeting that we should maybe have a breaking contest and award that. And so we're looking into that potentially here in the next couple of weeks. But
I hope that you can register for that, because I'd like to see.
I'll bring my own cardboard. Julie, what's your best day ever? What do you got for us?
So my best day ever, meaning one that I've already had, or what do I want? How do you want me to?
It's up to you. You do what you want.
Oh boy. Best day ever. My best day ever likely would be on a beach somewhere, but truly my best day ever was probably when I was at the Phillies World Series game where they hit 5 home runs.
And there was an earthquake?
No, that was the game before they got no hit.
Before. Okay.
Yeah, that was the best day ever. So yeah, I mean, I can't overstate just how obsessed I am with baseball, and that you guys probably have heard that too much. So, but here I am. So
I love it. My best day ever is, using this job and the work that we do in this company that we do to connect with people like Julie, where we would have never met probably if we didn't connect, but we are probably overly passionate around baseball and the strategy around baseball and why it's such a great game to watch. We're passionate about our shoe game. I don't know what your shoe game's going on today, but I did sport some nice Jordans for you today.
I have just sandals on right now.
Okay.
So
I mean, I'm up 1 up on that. I'm 1-0 on that. Okay.
I do have to show you my 2 new pair after we're off here.
I'm in. I want to see them. I love how people can connect when they just genuinely, authentically want to know, what do you like? What do you do? What's connected to you? And so I do have a present for you, and this is going to be my best day ever, is that I know that you love Caitlin Clark. And so the Women's National Basketball Association created some very unique jerseys for Caitlin Clark. And on the back of it, it says "Bet on Women." And so I had to get you this. We had to get you this. And so this comes from, actually comes from the University of Iowa and their special little secret booth that they had at the Iowa State Fair that I was at last night. And so I had to score that for you, and I had to get my daughter one too.
You are so kind. Thank you so much.
That's coming your way. And I expect to see this hanging in your background sometime on one of your other podcasts that you do.
Actually, I'd like to get it signed and then get it framed. So
we'll work on that. But hey, thank you for joining us, Julie. It's always awesome to see you. Thanks for all that you do for other people. For all the folks that are listening out there, HR, employees, employers, thanks for all that you do for creating a collaborative environment and helping people where they need it, and meeting them where they are. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.